Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Joe and Jazz. Let's get to them. So what's fascinating about it is obviously the subject is massively important. You're talking about young girls, young women who are at their most vulnerable, at their most transformative in terms of this period of time, where without the right information, their lives can be so negatively impacted. Their sense of confidence can be negatively impacted. So how do you translate that need into a business that makes money?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, Robert. And I think often we're asked, this user group, they don't have any money, so are you a charity? And actually it's, this business isn't just for the users, which are the young girls. This is for the parents as well. So I think to your point, Robert, around accelerating the launch, this is to help you and, support you in your journey with your daughters, so that you can continue to have a great relationship with them and, also for you to have the right answers at your hands. So I think for us, we want to give young people options. We want to tell them, if you're feeling like this is what you can do. Here are the potential consequences, and here are the pros and cons. But ultimately, it's down to you to make decisions with your parents or with your family or on your own in terms of what your choices are, right? So that is where we want to serve our users and how we want to add value. In terms of revenue model, well, I think we can't be revealing our huge business plans there, but a secret comes with the parents and, them being our customers. So we've got a couple of strategies in terms of how we might monetize this by leveraging parents in the future, potentially building additional services, is it access to therapists, to gynecologists, that we can then feed through our app there. But in short, the app will be free for all young people. We do not believe that content and access to information and to products should come at a cost to anybody. Ultimately, we're trying to level the playing field here, Robert, because some schools teach us really well. Some parents talk really openly about this to their children and others don't. And that's just not fair, no matter where you're from, culturally or anywhere in the world. So we're here to level that playing field and just make sure that girls have everything they need to grow up and to realize that it's tough when you're there. We've been through it, we know it, but we're going to help you, and we're everyone's older sister, and you can get through this. So yeah.
I love that idea of that you're everyone's older sister. That is such a lovely concept. The other part of it is, I think, women have traditionally driven most markets. Women are the single most important consumer segment. And, young women are starting out on a journey where they are going to be, beginning to earn money and start to make their own brand decisions. And the ability to engage these young women from a brand standpoint, authentically and honestly, with valuable information, I think would be of massive importance for them. Mm-hmm. I think that there are some phenomenal companies out there that would love nothing more than a platform to be able to contribute to what your mission is. So I just think it's phenomenal. And, to say nothing, of course, there's the parents that would like to offload it like me. There's the brands that want to communicate it. But as you kind of alluded to a minute ago, the service side of it, this fellow that I just interviewed, he's a remarkable entrepreneur, he was a co-founder of one of India's first direct-to-consumer unicorns. He's on a second venture now, and he was talking about the fact that, his service, direct to consumer as well, but his service is aimed at pet owners in India. And he said there's 25 million pet owners, and they're wildly underserved. And so he's created a platform that not only sells products, but also offers consultation services. So online medical visits, online training, et cetera. So again, there's so many dimensions the way that you can engage consumer and provide them with value. And there's a lot of people that need to reach that audience. So I think it's exciting. I think it's brilliant. So well done, the two of you. So what's the window then in terms of going live with the app?
Good question. So where we're at the moment is we're still very much deep really in sort of customer discovery and really understanding the market. We really want to get to know these girls and young women and what they want. So we're kind of doing everything we can to test our hypotheses that we've got in sort of an offline way, as it were. So we're doing that at the moment, trying to just gather as much data as possible. In parallel to that, we have a UX team who are actually putting some of these ideas and bringing it to life. So we have like a test, a prototype basically that is kind of a click-through one. There's no back end to it, so you wouldn't be able to actually engage with it in the way that obviously we hope the app will be used in the future. But it will be a great sort of demo tool to both our user group, parents, and obviously investors as well. So for this to happen, we obviously need investment, and that is kind of our sort of next big milestone, really. So in terms of launching this, we will be going out to investors in the new year to try and raise our round to then actually build the app, which hopefully will then obviously kick off in the new year. And, sort of early to mid next year, we're hoping to have a real app, shall we say, to take to the market, which has all been tested by our user group. And we've got a wonderful group of Luna VIPs, we call them. And it's our test group of young women who are so keen to get involved and really help. So we've kind of got those guys on standby to help with all the testing. And so hopefully we'll see something in Q2 next year.
Nice. Well, I think it's great. I wish you all the luck, because it's amazing that you've gone through an MBA, which is obviously quite an intense program, and now you're kind of drinking through the fire hose, as it were, understanding this new business of yours. So there's a lot of, one of the big reasons for me producing this show is a lot of people see themselves one day being in business. And I want to try and inspire them to get there. And I want to try and introduce them to people and their real stories, their human stories about what it is to be an entrepreneur. So my last question to you is this, because you're so early and you really are, one step beyond where a lot of people might be, what's the advice that you give to people? Like, what have you learned separate to your MBA? What were the things that surprised you? What did you learn that would help people watching this gain an advantage?
Good question.
I can sort of think of three things. I think the first is it gets harder to leave a career and to launch something. The further down the line in your career you get comfortable, you start to earn a nice salary, you start to move up the ranks. And so, it's taken like 7 years to finally get to this point. And it was hard to be like, hey, I'm going to leave the MBA. I'm going to see my friends on these sort of nice salaries, and mine will come eventually when we build our Lunicorn. But it's going to take time, right? So I guess my first thing is, if you have a good idea and if you've got a bit of time on your hands, go try it. Like, spend the weekends talking to people. Are there any ways you can validate it? And does it excite you? And if it does, then maybe the time is now to try something rather than, waiting until it's almost too late or it's too hard to sort of drop everything and launch a startup. So that's my first thing. The second is, if you do have an idea, be open and chat about it. So somebody gave me this feedback recently as I sort of pushed back on talking to someone who was playing in a similar market to us. And they said, no, Jazz, you should talk to them because they'll know people and they can connect you, right? So I think taking that advice has been great. And to your point, Robert, we're super early in our journey, but we told the world about what we're doing on LinkedIn. And I know people will probably think, gosh, why did they launch and tell people when they haven't even got a product? Well, actually, it led to us finding mentors. It led to us finding customers and even some early investors who now want to talk. So I think that be open, talk about any idea you might have is actually good feedback. And then the last thing is, if you do end up going forward with taking an idea forward and starting something, it is really hard at the start, and you are just like, I have no idea where to begin. Jonah, I think for the first month, we couldn't get into the rhythm of it, and there was just so much, and people would send you articles and have you thought about this. But I do think now that we're into month 2, it gets easier. You find your rhythm, you figure out your pace, and it might take you a bit longer than others because you are going to try and work out and focus on your well-being. And Joe and I have decided that we are going to do that. And if it means going to market a little bit later, then fine. But finding that pace and rhythm comes, but I think you will get there. And I say this now, I'm sure next week I'll be thinking, oh God, it's gone back to that madness. But I think it does get a bit easier. So they're my sort of three nuggets there.
You know what I'd also add, Jazz, is that you've also cultivated this interesting look, which is kind of Steve Jobs meets youth. And I think that's really going to help. So
thank you. I was afraid you wouldn't mention that, Robert.
Well,
that is our vibe.
You forced me into mentioning it. So, Joe, what would your advice be?
I really like all of Jazz's point, and I completely agree with them. I think to start a business, and seriously start a business, not me as a 15-year-old going to wash the next door neighbour's car. You really do have to love it. Like, you really have to believe in what you're doing, and just be happy with putting, hours into it. Jazz and I were not taking a salary from this at the moment, and, we're living off, our savings. And so to a point, you kind of have to make those sacrifices. Like Jazz was saying, our friends are all on wonderful salaries at the moment, having left the MBA. But I personally don't think we've gone into it blindly, as in we did a ton of research beforehand. We went into this believing in the idea, believing in the product, and believing that actually one day, it will make money and we will be able to live off it and enjoy our lives with it. So I think a big thing is you do have to love it, and you do have to really believe in the idea. Else, those nights when it's midnight and you're getting up at 6 a.m. the next day are going to feel even harder than they actually are. So love it.
Yeah, it's funny. There's 2 really interesting interviews I conducted recently, and one was with somebody who runs a business that curates fine art for private clubs and hotels. And what was interesting was that she got into that business because she'd grown up in a family that were art collectors, and she studied art history. And I was really interested about, the artists themselves, what was driving them. And there was a moment where there was this incredible connection that I found between fine artists and entrepreneurs. Because with a fine artist, you often have to fly in the face of what you're seeing around you. You often have to fly in the face of what people think of as good taste, acceptable, mainstream, as you try and create something of meaning, something that reflects your values. You try and create. And, there's an immense struggle in that, for fine artists, as they're trying to express something that's unique for the world. And in a way, it's so true of entrepreneurs as well, is that, there was a fellow I interviewed that is a psychologist that specializes in working with entrepreneurs. And he was saying, that often entrepreneurs have to suppress a lot of fear and anxiety. It isn't easy to turn to people. They can't necessarily take it home because they don't want to cause their partners anxiety. They can't talk to their friends because often their friends aren't entrepreneurs. And so this idea that you've got to be, as you were saying, Joe, so committed to an idea that you've got to love it, that you've got to basically go into it with a level of blindness, even when your MBA colleagues are out there earning salaries. The goal and the opportunity is to make a mark in the world. And you are focusing your energies at such an important area. And I just want to say, I believe in you. I think you're awesome. And so thank you very much for sharing your story. And I look forward to finding out more about how things progress.
Oh, thank you. I just want to add one final thing. You have to love the person you work with. Like, I speak to Joe probably more than I speak to my partner right now. And people always say it like, oh, you are married to your co-founder, but you are married to your co-founder. So I just think, to your point around support, Robert, and having the right people, nothing could be more important than working with someone that you not only love working with, but love being around, whether it's virtually or like face-to-face, 24/7, to the point where I've called my partner Joe before, and he was not happy with that. So I just wanted to add that final point, because I think we take it as a given, but like that is super, super important as well.
Yeah.
Great point. And I love the sisterhood angle. So again, thanks guys. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.
So much, Robert.
Thanks so much for sticking to the end of our two-part interview with Joe Goodall and Jazz Schembri, co-founders of Luna. I love them. Their energy, their enthusiasm, and their commitment to not just focusing their obvious talents on making money, but to instead do some good in the world. And I want to give a big shout out again to my amazing sponsor, the Innovation Hub at Carleton University, dedicated to helping create leaders just like Joe and Jazz. To find out more, visit them at www.carleton.ca/innovationhub. And please remember to hit like and subscribe for more great stories of inspired entrepreneurs. We'll see you next time.